Okay, so it's been a while since I posted a day in the life video, and reason being, I've just been super busy training up my new apprentice. But I feel like he's at a skill level now where I can introduce him. So here he is. This is Alfie the apprentice. As you can see here, I'm teaching him how to test if a gas valve is working, and he's looking at me like, what is going on? So I'm gonna put him down before he starts attacking me. I swear cats are so temperamental. But all jokes aside, let's take a look at why we've got F28 on this boiler. So as the boiler's going through its sequence, you can hear it sparking, but I'm not getting any drop on the U gauge, which shows that the gas valve isn't opening. Now, sometimes you can give the gas valve a gentle whack because they do just get stuck inside. Try doing that, it's not having it. So I'm going to be changing over this gas valve, so let's get into that. Now, if it's your first time watching one of my videos, this is just going to be a collection of jobs that I've gone to, jobs that I found you might have found useful, you might learn something from. If there are any jobs that you do want to see or things you want me to explain more, just let me know and I'll try to put some in the future. But in terms of this one, the gas valve is really easy to take off from this. We've literally just got a nut at the top, nut at the bottom. We've got one screw holding in the gas valve, and then we've got our electrical connections. So it's going to quickly pop off the air intake as well, so I got a lot more space to take this gas valve out, and now the gas valve should just slide left. Nice and easy. So putting the new gas valve in, again, super simple, just doing everything in reverse order. So slide it right. First thing I usually do is just put the screw in so I know it's in the right position. Once that's in, then I'll do my connection at the top, bottom, and then I'll put all my electrical connections back in. Now we just need to put the air inlet back on, and we should be able to fire the boiler up and see if it's working. And moment of truth. All good. It's fired up. So doing my safety checks. I've got my apprentice here again with me doing my safety checks before I go. But yeah, this job's all good, so we can move on to the next one now. So apologies for the terrible lighting. This is the video that the customer sent me. So she said her magnet is leaking anytime the heating is on. So I said no problem, I'll come around and take a look. So the fact it was only leaking when the heating was on was a bit strange. So I went and took a look, and it was just the condense that come undone from the boiler. But if you look, it's too small, the pipe. So what I'm going to have to do is cut it and extend it a little bit, but it is at a little bit of a funny angle. So I'm going to show you a cool trick to how I get around that. So you can see if I put this pipe on straight, it doesn't really line up. It needs to bend just a little bit. So if you've watched my boiler install on the Water 2000, I showed you that if you get your blowtorch and heat the pipe up from a distance, you can bend the pipe a little. Don't have my blowtorch with me, but there is a cooker. So I'm gonna treat this pipe like it's a marshmallow and heat it from a distance, and then I'll be able to bend it a little bit to get it to the right angle that I need. So hopefully that's about right. If not, I can heat it a little bit and adjust it again. But you can see pretty much lines up perfect now. So that did get me out of trouble. So that should be this job all done. So for this job, we've got hot water that's not working, and it is on the S plan. So we're gonna have to figure out what's going on. So first thing I do is I take off this case, and that gives me access to the cables so I can do my testing and seeing what's working, what's not working. So let's take a look. So the zone valve that I just had my hand on is the hot water one because it goes directly to the cylinder. So if I follow the cable, I can now see the brown cable is right there and the orange cable is right to the right of it. So if I call for a demand on the hot water, I should get power on this brown cable, which I am. So it proves that the control's working fine. I should then get power on the orange cable, which I'm not. So it goes to show that there's something wrong with the zone valve. So usually if you're getting power on the brown but you're not getting any on the orange, it's usually because the motor's gone. So I've done a few videos on changing the whole zone valve head, but in this video I'll show you how to actually just change the motor. It is really simple. So you've just got one screw on the left, one screw on the right, and the motor head should just pop up. So now we need to sort out these cables. So if you follow the blue cables, they're in those little crimps there. So all we need to do is uncrimp them, put the new head in, crimp those together, and it is just as simple as that. So old one is out now, and they do give you new crimps to put on for the new one. So if we just put our new motor in now, put that in, slide it in, and then we should just have to crimp the cables together. So that's cable number one taken care of, and that is cable number two crimped and all done as well. So on my cutters I've got a nice little crimp function there, so I just crimp them together and clamps it down. So let's test it and see if it works. So I can already tell this zone valve is opening up now because this little tab is loose, which it wasn't before, so that's a good sign. But if I get my little screwdriver now and test it on the brown, we've got power there, which shows that the programmer is doing the right thing. And if I now test the orange, I've also got power there now as well. Now I know a few people are going to get onto me for using this pencil or pen, because everyone always does every time I use it. The reason I don't use the voltage testers in the video is because it's hard to put the 2 points and record. I do use voltage testers to make sure I'm getting 230, but just for the sake of the video and explaining it, this little screwdriver does a good job. But that's it, everything's working as it should. Just gonna pop this case back on, and that's this job all done. So for this boiler, we've got a valent that's overheating only on hot water. So heating completely fine. 9 out of 10 times it's going to be the plate. So you can see here the temperature is going up, but the flame's not on full flame, because if it goes into full flame, it's going to overheat. And if I show you this video of the water running now, it's going from hot, cold, warm, and it's doing that whole cycle. So going to give the plate a feel, but pretty sure it's going to be the plate. So another thing you can do to see if it's a plate as well is if the plate is scalding hot on one side but freezing cold on the other side, it's usually an indication that it's blocked. The plate should be pretty much evenly hot on both sides. You might find one corner is cold because that's where the cold comes in, but it should be an even heat. So this boiler is the highest point of the house, so only going to isolate the cold, not going to bother isolating the flow and return. I'll just drain down the boiler because it's the highest point anyway. So one thing I'm really upset about at the moment is I've actually misplaced this blue folding bucket. It's so handy. As you can see, it literally just slots into my bag perfect. I've got my drain down hose, I've got my pump, so that means when it comes to doing a repair, literally all I need is my bag and maybe a part or two. I don't have to carry any wet vac, I don't have to carry any extra buckets, and it means I've just got more hands free when going into a job. So definitely gonna have to buy another one of them because they are a life changer. And as per usual, vessel is empty. It's always empty. So I'm going to quickly charge that to about 0.8, but as you can see, the digital gauge is reading about 1.1. This manual gauge is saying empty, so probably going to have to change over the, can't think of the word now, change over the pressure sensor, so we'll get that changed over as well. So that's the water pressure sensor out. Now for the plate, super simple on this boiler, 4 screws, and the plate literally just falls forward. Vela made it really easy. So what I'm about to do is I'm about to pull the plate, and if you listen, you can hear air sucking in. So what that does, it just helps drain that part a little bit more, and then that will come out through any taps or into that bucket there. And it means when you take that part out, water doesn't just gush out everywhere. And that's it. Plate is off. Just need to take off the sensor, and now I can take a look and see what's going on. So what's weird is this plate looks absolutely clean. Does not look dirty or blocked at all. And I've actually had this a few times where I've taken out a plate and it seems clean. I'll run spirit of salts through it, and all of a sudden the boiler was perfectly fine after. So I don't know if the block is just in the middle and you can't see it. No idea, but I've had it a few times and spirit of salts has always fixed the issue. So if anyone knows why that is, I'm more than happy to hear in the comments below. So while I'm here, because the plate doesn't look that dirty, I'm quickly going to pop out this flow pipe and check the canoe filter. Because the left hand side of this boiler pops off, it makes it a lot easier to check and take a look as well. So might as well while I'm here. So as you can see, canoe filter pretty clean. But if you've got a version of the Valent where the left hand side doesn't come off, these are really simple to take out. Literally hook your finger in, pull it out. Sometimes they are a little bit stuck, sometimes they're crushed to a million pieces. So hopefully it comes out nice and simple. So while I was messing around with the canoe filter, I had the spirit of salts in the plate, clearing it out. It's been about 20 minutes. So running the water through now, you can see the little bit of spirit of salts coming out, flowing pretty fine. So I'm gonna run water through it a few times, try to get as much acid as I can, and then put it back into the boiler. So that's it. Plate's back on. Just need to put the flow pipe back on, and that's everything pretty much assembled. So far, everything's looking good, no leaks. Let's hope it stays that way. Okay, so boiler's at 1.5, boiler's fired up now, and the moment of truth. Let's wait for all the air to come out. But seems to be running fine. Water's staying consistently hot. Tested it a few times. So I think there was just maybe a small blockage in the plate. It couldn't flow through properly. So spirit salt saved the day as it always does. And on to the next job. So for this job, we've got a 12 millibar gas leak. So first thing I've done is I've capped the hob because there's no isolation valve. And I've also isolated the boiler and tested it again. It's still leaking, so it's definitely on the pipework somewhere. So I started ripping up the floors, and I did get really lucky and I managed to find it straight away. So on the opposite side of this wall is the gas meter. The pipe comes in and somehow someone screwed into that pipe. But I asked the person who lives here and they said no building work has been done for years. So this screw has been in this pipe leaking for years, which is crazy. But yeah, so I've taken off this skirting and the customer's nice enough to help me as well. And you can see the screws right there. So hopefully it's as simple as taking the screw out, cutting it, soldering it, and that's it. Now what's annoying is they've actually screwed through both sides of the pipe, so the top and the bottom. Now the reason I say that's annoying is you can get these little clip-on solder things, I don't really know what to call them, this here. And what you can do is just basically clean the top of the pipe, flux it, solder it on, and that is sufficient. But because you screwed through both sides, that's not going to work. So I'm going to have to cut it, put a straight connection, and do it like that. I know, it's not my best soldering at all, but that's what happens sometimes when you're trying to look at things through a camera instead of real life. But it does the job, it's going to be under the floor, so it's really not the end of the world. Okay, so waiting for it to cool down, and moment of truth seems to be holding, so hopefully there's no more screws in any more pipes. So I've reconnected the hob, I've unisolated the boiler, tested it again, everything's all good. So that should be this job done for now. So this boiler repair is a bit of an interesting one, and you'll see why in a minute. So you can see at the bottom of the boiler, there's a pool of water. So the reason I've come to this job in the first place is she says she has no hot water. So putting two and two together, I thought, right, the reason she has no hot water is because she's losing pressure because there's some type of leak inside the boiler. When I get there, there is pressure inside the boiler, so I ask her to run a hot water tap for me so I can see what's going on. She runs it, and she said she's still not getting no hot water. And I said, okay, are you sure you've got the right tap open? Because I'm not getting a demand. She goes, yeah. So I thought, right, okay, maybe it's the flow sensor. I go to take a look, and there's no water coming out the tap at all. So I said, when you say there's no hot water, you mean there's no water coming out the hot tap at all? She goes, yeah. I said, okay. So I take a look at the filling loops, and you can see one of them is missing the handle, but the right one is twisting, but only the plastic is spinning. It's not actually twisting the valve. So what's happened is she's tried to top up the pressure, but she's left that filling loop open. And if you don't know about valence, if you open their internal filling loop and leave it open on the cold water side, it doesn't send any water to the hot tap. So that's the reason she's getting no hot water, because that is isolated. So as soon as I take that cap off and shut it, hot water works perfectly fine. Now that that's all done, trying to dry all this water that's inside the boiler, but can't really see anything that's leaking. It's been about 10-15 minutes, nothing seems to be getting wet again, so I have no idea where that water came from. But yeah, let's move on to the next job. Now for this job, we've got underfloor heating. That's not working. Now I've tested the other circuits, they work perfectly fine, so it shows the boiler's working perfectly fine. It's just the underfloor heating circuit. So I go to the underfloor heating thermostat, turn it on. It's not really doing anything. So next thing I'm going to do is open up this wiring center and see what's going on behind here. Now on the inside of this case, you can see we've got everything labeled in terms of where things should be. Now that does not mean everything is going to be in the right order. You see some weird stuff in your time as an engineer sometimes. So I still just follow the cable, make sure that all the things are in the right place, and I'll do my testing from there. So you can see the brown cable from this zone valve is joined up with a black cable going somewhere. So first thing I'm going to do is test if I'm getting 230 here. So got my tester on there. I am getting 230 when the thermostat's on, and I'm losing my 230 when the thermostat's off. So it shows the controls are working perfectly fine. Now what's interesting is when I took the head off of this actual valve, I was getting 230 on the orange cable. So it shows that the switch is fine, the head's working fine. But when I try to spin this, it's super stiff. So I think what's happening is the head was trying to open the valve, but because the valve was so seized, the heating couldn't actually flow through. So it's going to be a thing of changing over that body. I did try WD-40ing it up and freeing it, wasn't having it, so just going to change it over. So I probably will end up keeping this head because it does work perfectly fine. It is the body that has just seized up, unfortunately, so I'll keep this as a spare for any future jobs that I go to. But first things first, drain down the system so I can get that valve changed over. Don't know what it is about this valve. Tried undoing it with a spanner, but everything seems to be super glued shut. So I sprayed WD-40 in all the connections, gonna let it sit for a minute and then I'll try it again. And that is it. That is the old one out. Now luckily there was play in the pipe, so it was pretty easy to get out. I don't know if anyone else does this, but anytime I take an olive off, my inner thoughts take over and I just always have to crush the olive. I don't know why, I always do, but you can see got the same type of zone valve now. Gonna make sure they're level and get that on. So everything's together now, tight. These ones are really easy to put on. You literally just push the black pin on the side, move the tab, and it should just line up. And then you can give it a pull, make sure it's not coming off. So we're at 1.5, just gonna make sure there's no leaks, and if everything is all good, then it's just the wiring to do. So wiring's all done, let's turn it on and see if it's working. So turn the thermostat up and it works all perfectly fine. So that should be that job all done. Let's move on to the next. So we've got a nice and basic job for this last one. So there's this boiler here, nothing wrong with it, but the person who installed it only installed a programmer. There's no thermostat. So the person who lives here, they can't control the temperature. So they want me to install a thermostat, but for some reason they put a programmer on, but this boiler only does the heating. The hot water is all electric. So I'm just gonna take this off, put a normal thermostat on, and it should just do the job. So looking at this diagram, I can see we've got our normal earth, neutral and live on the left, and the number 4 is just our switch to the boiler. So it should be a nice and easy swap. So the wall looks a little bit finished, hence why I think they've used silicone everywhere to hold the old programmer on. So hopefully putting this one on isn't too much of a headache. So first thing I'm going to do is sort these earth cables out. So this thermostat doesn't have an earth terminal in it. So what I'm just going to do is join all these earths up in this connector block here, and that's the earth sorted. So now we're just left with our neutral, our live, and then the switch to the boiler as well. So I've wired them in, done the neutral, live, and I've done the switch, which is number 3. Now I need to put a link between L and 2, and it should be all done. So that's it on the wall, no more silicone. Gonna turn the power on, pop the batteries in, get them paired, and then explain to the woman how to use it. And that should be this job all done. Working perfect. And that's a wrap for this video. So I hope you enjoyed. If there's anything you could have done different as an engineer, again, let me know. Any questions, let me know. I've got quite a bit more content coming. I've got 2 boiler installs that I've done that I need to upload. I was gonna include them in this, but it made it way too long, so I'll do them as separate episodes. But I'll see you in the next one.